You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Johannes Ekström of Avatar. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Today's episode of the Tone Mob Podcast is brought to you by Third Power Amps. The amps are handmade right in Nashville, Tennessee. Wait a second. Nashville's getting some serious representation on this Pacific Northwest-based podcast. Coincidence? Anyway, Third Power, I got the opportunity to play with the Woolly Coats Extra Chimey for quite a while, which was the amp that we used in the Ultimate Gear giveaway. And I gotta say, I never thought I was an AC amp guy, but this thing changed my mind. This is an AC on steroids, and the clean tones are gorgeous, and then put some of your favorite like time-based or modulation effects in the effects loop and learn to love them even more, because somehow it takes those effects that you already love and makes them sound even richer and just better overall. I don't know how Jamie and the guys do it, but I'm impressed, and the amp looks gorgeous. It sounds gorgeous. You're not going to be upset if you are rocking one of these on stage. So check out Third Power Amps, and you'll be glad you did. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the ToneMob.com podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I am your host, Blake Weiland, and with me again, I have another repeat guest on the show today, and that would be somebody that I talk to on a weekly basis anyway, so prepare for another thrilling conversation with none other than Mr. Brian Wampler. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Blake? Long-time listener, second-time caller here.
That's right. Yes. Pretty good. You was harassing me a couple weeks ago on Chasing Tone about how you haven't come back on Tone Mob yet, and so now I decided, hey, what the heck? Why don't you come on the Tone Mob episode?
You haven't shown me any love. I feel like you've been cheating on me a little bit.
Well, it's almost like I've been like doing another podcast with you every week or something.
It has been a little awkward to think, okay, so what are we going to talk about? Because we talk like every week on my podcast.
And we're always like, what kind of topics are we going to come up with this time? Like, what was it going to be?
I got an idea. We'll just copy and paste from the Chasing Tone podcast, and then, you do your intro. Easy. We'll get 2 podcasts for one.
Oh, that's a good call. No one's gonna catch on. No one actually pays attention to what we're saying.
No one will ever notice.
No, never.
Because there's so many gear podcasts out there. People they can't find them all.
No, there's no way that we have any of the same listeners. It's impossible.
No, impossible.
Absolutely.
Oh, we said the same word at the same time. It's cute.
It is cute. It's almost like we talk every week and know what each other's about to say.
To say.
Wait, no, boy. We're like that married couple who start to finish each other's sentences and yeah, and start looking like each other. Oh, wait. Anyway,
I'm the skinny handsome brother.
I'm the short ugly one.
Oh.
Anyways,
so I've been a busy man this week. I know you have too.
You've been going like gangbusters with all kinds of stuff. We kind of talked on Chasing Tone about all your new pedals, but I know there's more than that. Is there anything you kind of because since we don't have any of the same listeners, you can go over to Chasing Tone and get the overview of the pedals. But I feel like there's some more stuff going on behind the scenes that maybe you can share, maybe you can't share at all. But what else is happening? You got a lot more than just a couple new pedals going on.
Yeah, so basically, pretty much the entire line has been, well, those 3 pedals have had like a new pedal, 2 version 2s, the new pedal being the mini ego compressor, the version 2s being like Pinnacle Deluxe, now it's a 3-band EQ, it has a sag control, it has 2 different style boosts on it. The Faux Tape Echo now has subdivisions on it. Everything's been graphically updated. So some new paints, new graphics, everything looks way more cohesive. Everything is now using soft switches with relays, which is still true bypass, or as I like to call it, complete bypass.
Complete. It's almost like we just talked about this.
Yeah, that's what I like to call it, complete. I figure if Mike, wasn't it Mike Fuller that started calling things true bypass? I may be way off.
But he definitely, if he wasn't the first, he definitely hitched his wagon to it early on.
He popularized it, if nothing else. So I'm going to start using the term complete bypass, like final, in its ultimate completion. This is the truest true signal that a person can have.
I'm not buying it. Sorry.
I'm trademarking it right now. You have to buy it.
Fine. I'll buy it.
We've updated graphics on really everything. Like the Paisley drive is pretty close. The Tumnus is pretty close. Looking triple rec. Okay, so the triple rec has very minor changes, 30-something very minor changes, and the low blow bass overdrive and distortion is pretty much unchanged. But yeah, everything else, man, it's we've done a lot of. Jason Wilding, the guy that does the graphics for me, he and I have been going back and forth and basically arguing, fighting, and yelling at each other over making sure these things were cohesive and, making sure everything looked like a real brand rather than a bunch of randomized pedals that were thrown in over a period of 10 years, Because if we're honest, like, it's really weird how things started. So, and your listeners may not actually know this because I never really talk about this. So when in 2008-ish or so, that's when Brian was like in a barn building, like literally, I was in a big mini barn. It was just like a 12 by 16 mini barn or something.
Okay.
And you know what a mini barn is, right? It's like just a barn you set on the ground. It's not even like doesn't have a foundation or anything.
Oh,
like that.
right. Yep, I gotcha.
You know what I mean? Most people like put their mowers and stuff in them.
Yeah, over here we got a company called Tough Shed that basically does that. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. So so same sort of idea. It's just a very inexpensive building. Put some insulation in it and put a space heater in there, a window air conditioner in the summer. And Brian was building pedals like a man with four hands. Just going to town. And so, but I was doing pretty much everything. And my wife was helping me a lot back then too. And you're probably going to find this weird, but my wife's grandma actually used to assemble electronic stuff for Harman, I believe.
Oh, interesting.
Harman was a local company here where I live. They had a factory here for a while. So anyway, so she had a lot of experience, soldering and stuff like that. And so she was helping solder some circuit boards right alongside. Excuse me. That snuck up on me. Soldering circuit boards right alongside of us. So, it was the 3 of us in a barn and another guy named Justin Simpson, all just hammering out pedals. And,
soldering has got to be the best.
She actually is probably better than I am at it because she's done it for like 30 years.
I believe it.
Quicker and better, and she's like, "Your solder joints look terrible, Brian." I'm like, "I'm trying." She's like, "Yeah, you're just terrible at this. You need to find someone else to build your pedals."
Like a grandma. There you go. That's fantastic.
So graphic wise, I was, I didn't know anything like about the screen printing process at this time. It wasn't like build your own clone was just getting started. I mean, no one had UV printers back then. A couple guys were doing screen printing. Other people were just making labels and putting labels on pedals and that sort of thing. So I was doing the quote unquote graphic design for the labels.
Right.
And so like if you look at the Plextortion, you'll have to dive through some of Google's images to find it now, but that started out as a label that Jason Wilding's like, okay, so we're going to actually, we're going to start doing UV printing, and we're going to make a regular printed graphic on these pedals. And he's like, well, we don't want to change it too drastically, so I'm going to kind of start from where you left off with the sticker, and so that's what they kind of look like almost like the sticker was was printed onto the pedal. So, and then as we come up with new pedals, he's like, all right, well, I'm going to make this one actually look cool. So, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So that's how we came up with Paisley Drive and Catapult and all the better looking pedals. Latitudes look really cool. Velvet Fuzz was actually designed by the team at Pro Guitar Shop, actually.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you told me about that.
Yeah, because it was I think it was a temporarily an exclusive for them for like 30 or 60 days or something.
That sounds right.
So, yeah. So they came up with the graphics for that, and I loved that sub graphic behind it, and so we just kind of carried that through to the rest of the line. Everything kind of has like this sub graphic. You got to turn it in the light, and you'll see this sub graphic behind it.
Little known fact: my first Wampler, Velvet Fuzz. There you go. Before you or I were ever speaking, I owned a Velvet Fuzz, and still own a Velvet Fuzz, and love it.
Well, I appreciate that, Blake. That means that you've been a long time fan, and it's kind of an honor for you to talk to me.
It was at first.
That quickly subsided, though, right?
That quickly subsided. I was like, oh, this guy again. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Wish I had never received that fateful email.
Why does he keep calling me? Make him stop.
Make him stop. I'm trying to eat biscuits and gravy. Leave me alone. B's and G's. So
right.
Yes, for the long-time listeners, there's a little throwback. I love me some B's and G's, and I love the guys who came up with the term B's and G's. So there you go.
Well, that would be Max and Travis from the older Chasing Tone podcast, because I'm not witty enough to come up with that.
I'm not gonna lie, as you know, and I've probably talked about this somewhere before, but the original Chasing Tone podcast was the inspiration for me to start this one. One of. I was like, why aren't there more gear podcasts? Like, why isn't anybody
You're probably like, why aren't they actually talking about gear?
No, I loved it. I had no problems with any of it. I listened to every episode like as soon as it dropped. So I was definitely a fan of the show. So it inspired me to start this one though, and then I didn't know that fast forward 9 months later after doing this, that all of a sudden I was going to be the guest host on Chasing Tone. That was kind of a trip. I was like, okay, this is very, very weird and awesome at the same time. So
it was probably not anywhere near as cool as what you thought it was going to be. It's kind of like when I've had some people meet me like, I've always wanted to meet you. And I'm like, why? This has to be like a major letdown. I'm totally just like you, except probably more bad habits. So
I think that, I don't know. I almost think that is pretty much par for the course. Everybody in here in this gear world is just like, they're all just dudes. It may not seem like it for some reason, but maybe just because when you're a little bit more public with just being a kind of a person, I don't know, a person in a field, and you're more public with it, it seems like maybe you're something special. No, everyone's dudes. Literally everyone.
It is. And I find myself doing the same thing a bit, if I see someone on YouTube a lot and, I'll meet them at NAMM or something, it's a little bit surreal. Because there they are, live, and it's just different, watching them on YouTube at 24 frames a second or whatever, and seeing them live. So there's this surrealness to it. If that's not a word, I just made it up. Trademark Brian Wampler, 2016. And yeah, so I don't know. So I understand that too a bit, but I will say there are some people that put me in up on a pedestal that I should not be on. You know, because at the end of the day, I'm literally just a dude, just a dork with a breadboard. You know,
You should get a T-shirt that says that, "Dork with a breadboard."
I should make that shirt.
Mm-hmm. But
And
anyway,
then I should sell them on the Tone Mob store.
you could.
ToneMob.com/store.
You could definitely do that. I don't know who would buy it, but probably other dorks with breadboards.
Maybe so.
You could sell one to every pedal company, which actually, hey man, that wouldn't be too bad.
that may not be a bad business model.
But yeah, one thing I think we've kind of discussed before on Chasing Tone, but obviously we've never discussed it here because this is your second appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Since you have been around the, quote unquote boutique guitar industry or pedal industry for a long time now, what are your kind of thoughts on like the somewhat in the last 3 to 5 years, it's just exploded with not just the amount of pedals, but the amount of, small companies.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any thoughts on as to why that is or where you see it headed?
Well, it's a bubble. I think history in general always repeats itself. And basically in everything, there's always a bubble of some sort, whether it's manufacturing or, craft beer or whatever. I mean, like everything has a bubble. Mm-hmm. Like right now, craft beer, and not that I follow it like super close, but everybody's everybody's a craft brewer. Not everybody, but a bunch of people are brewing at home. A bunch of people are like, I'm going to start my own craft beer company,
Mm-hmm.
So they're in a bubble too. Same thing with, I wouldn't say podcast, but it's not your podcast, but like marketing podcasts.
Oh yeah.
It's a big bubble. There's a gigantic amount of people who want to talk about marketing and business, via podcast. And
sometimes, in my opinion, this is a little bit off subject, but some of those people maybe shouldn't be talking about it.
That's the thing, yeah. In that situation, you have a bunch of people who they've never done it before, but they've heard a lot of people talk about it, and so they're just taking in information and spitting it back out in their own voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's.
I guess that's no different. That's no different than some professors, if you think about it.
Well, that's true. That's they actually never did. They just heard and then regurgitate.
Right. They're like, here's what the textbook says. I don't like learning that way. I much rather learn from someone that's been there and done that and made the mistakes, and I'd way prefer that. So that's totally off topic.
Yeah.
So as far as like what we're talking about with gear and new companies coming out, I think, and I hate to say it, but here's what's going to happen. It's going to take a few years, but you're going to see a lot of companies start to drop off the radar because they don't have chops in some way. Not that I have like the greatest chops, but like it requires a whole different mindset to understand that your company, the money that it's making, is not your money. That's the company's money.
Right.
It might as well be like a whole different person. And it's hard to, when you're starting a gear company, it's hard to, not pay yourself for 2 years while you're getting it going. Mm-hmm. Or at least take the very least amount, and eat spaghetti every night just to make it work. A lot of people get a big order and like, woohoo, we're eating good this month, mm-hmm. and you can't do that. You have to really be really skim. Even today, I don't drive a Ferrari or anything like that. Like there's just not. I just live the same way I always have.
Well, it's a Jaguar. Let's not sugarcoat it.
I pay myself the same salary I paid myself 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. 5 years ago, and the whole idea is to keep capital in there so you can continue growing and continue expanding, and like you got to scale everything. So you can't stay the same size you just can't. Like if you're not growing or if you're not moving in some way, you're slowly plateauing and dying. And that's that can be really hard. That's the business side is something that we don't really talk about in pedal circles, like
Right.
all the different DIY forums where all the new builders are starting up.
Mm-hmm.
If you start talking about, gross profit, and you start talking about branding or marketing of any sort, especially, and
Oh boy.
if you start talking about anything like that, eyes start to glaze over very quickly. And unfortunately, like that's a big, huge part of the business. It
yes.
is a business. You have to run it differently than you would run like the hobby.
Yes, if you want it to be a real thing, you do.
Yes.
And the marketing side, I'm that's something I try to help people with. That's part of my thing, and I realize how far behind. I don't mean this in a bad way, because they probably spent their time learning how to build stuff instead of how to sell it or how to get it in front of people. But I'm just realizing, I'm like, oh yeah, are you doing this? Or are you doing that? And people are like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is basic stuff. Some of the things I'm mentioning to them, it's like really basic, and they don't have a clue that it exists. And I don't mean that in a bad way. That's just not where their interests lie. But it's stuff you have to learn.
It is,
even if you're not interested in it. Unfortunately,
yes. Like I think it's hard for a lot of smaller builders to cross over from the breadboarding, building the product, over into like learning QuickBooks and understanding profit and loss sheets, and making budgets. That's how do you determine how much money to spend for advertising every month? Mm-hmm. How do you determine that? But that's all stuff you have to learn. Like you have to put the breadboard down and you have to go learn that stuff. Or if you're not willing to, or if you don't want to, you have to hire someone that's good at that.
Mm-hmm. And then let them do it. That's the other part of the thing.
You got to have a partner. And then, because we both have seen companies do that. They hire someone that is supposed to do a job and then they completely get in their way. So hire a guy that's good at doing that and get out of his way. Mm-hmm. You do what you're good at, build pedals or whatever, and then let him run the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think some builders would really benefit from that, because they don't like the marketing or, sales side. They don't really enjoy it. And then when you don't enjoy things, you tend to not be as good at them. That's just facts.
Right. You procrastinate, put it off, and it just, everything suffers.
Mm-hmm. But
so,
anyway.
I mean, that's, so I think a lot of those smaller companies will fade out, and I hate to say that, but I just think it's inevitable. There's a limited amount of people that are buying high-end gear. There just is. And it's not increasing. Like a lot of the younger people aren't really getting into higher end gear.
Right. They don't know why they need it.
Not like they were 10 or 20 years ago anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a different mindset. And plus, at least here in America, there's a thinning of the middle class.
Oh yeah. Big time.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of people that just don't have the money to buy that $200 pedal.
Yeah, even if they really want it. So that's unfortunate.
Right. Yep. I mean, so what do you do? I don't know. I think the whole pedal business, I think the whole the musical instrument business is going to radically change in 10 years.
I do too.
Totally change.
I do too. I think we're going to see more and more. I mean, it's already happening. This industry is already quite huge, but more and more seeing, like digital. Like it's way cheaper to buy I don't know, just a tube screamer plug-in than an actual tube screamer. And if it's 99% there,
Yeah, there's so many people that's just, going into, I started to say Amp Farm, but what's that, like 15 years ago? What is that product called? I can't even remember it. Holy crap. But anyways, just like Amplitude or, Two Notes also has a software. There's a bunch of softwares out there that, it's pedals or just impulse responses or whatever using your DAW. You can load up a Tube Screamer impulse response and a Marshall impulse response. And, if you got some decent monitors or decent headphones, and you just rock out.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
and I see a lot of young.
It's not what I would prefer to do, but I mean, if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. That's
Right.
the end of story.
Right. Or, I mean, the flip side is, if you're just recording at home but you don't have the finances to buy 18 different amps or, $3,000 worth of pedals, then, that's a possible second option. And I think things in the DSP world are only going to get better.
Yeah.
I don't think pedals or analogs are going to go away, but I think it's going to be more like, it's like tube amps. Tube amps are not ever going to go away. But the amount of $4,000 or $5,000 amps that are sold compared to the amount of $20 downloads for software, like it's just that they don't compare. You're getting gigantic amounts of downloads, and you're selling a couple hundred amps a year at $4,000, probably at best.
Right. Exactly. Well, and then
you're probably selling. You're probably doing pretty good if you're selling like 3 or 4 amps a month.
Yes, and then there's the thing of if you want to talk business side like we were, the thing of like how much maintenance does a plugin require versus my tube amp's busted and it's under warranty, so come fix it.
Right.
It's just I don't mean all this to say that I prefer the plugin.
This is not a preference. I mean, my preference would be, the old man mentality of don't change a thing, keep everything the way it is. But just being honest, like things are just moving. What I don't know is where Wampler Pedals is going to be in that whole scheme of things. So we're primarily a company that's like we dabble in DSP. We do have some plugins like through Amplitude and stuff, but like we don't have anywhere near the DSP of someone like Strymon or someone like that has way more engineering behind it.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I do think it's just things are going to increase digitally. I think we're going to see in the pedal and effect world. I think we're going to see more and more like super interesting, like things that have never been done before. And, combining digital and analog technology. I mean, that's already happening. I'm looking at a pedal right now that I never even knew that I wanted. I think I've talked about it a couple times, but it's the Hologram Electronics Dream Sequence. And we've talked about it briefly, but it's they describe it as a programmable rhythm and octave. And that's about the best you can do to describe all the things it does. It just has an insane amount of processing power and the tricks that it can do. You're making sounds that haven't really been done in a pedal format before. So I see the industry sliding into things like that. We'll always need the classic sounds, but I think the innovation is going to continue with companies like them, Chase Bliss, guys that are just going bonkers. I think we're going to continue to see more and more of that every year. This is going to make me sound crazy, but I honestly think in 20 years, 15, 20 years, I think VR is going to be the next big revolution. And I think there's going to be almost like a different world where a person can go into this virtual reality and go into some sort of music store and play through products. And I think at some point there's going to be some way it's going to trigger sensors in our brain, and we're going to be able to. It's going to feel like real. It's going to feel real. I think at some point that's where all this stuff moves to. That's just my opinion, though. I think you're right. VR has been talked about as the next thing for, I don't know, 15 years, and it's actually like now getting its feet wet in like, no, this is a thing. Like I think you're right. I don't know if it's gonna happen in that way where it'll feel real in that time frame. I think we're still a little behind.
Yeah, I think that's a little ambitious thing. It's going to feel real, but I think in time, especially as we understand how the brain works more and more, as artificial intelligence becomes much, much smarter, then I think I just think we're in for a dramatic shift over the next 50 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Where
I
the
think
music
that's
industry,
yes.
I mean, like everything's different. I mean, shoot, some people believe that we're living in a matrix right now. We're in some sort of simulation right now. You know?
Yeah.
And there's some good arguments for it. Like, if you listen to the arguments for it, there's some good logic behind it. I'm not saying I believe it or don't believe it, but I'm saying, like, if you're just purely looking at the logic side of it, there's some good arguments that some people are making for that.
Well, see, I have this foggy memory of I was talking to this guy with these funny sunglasses on that just clipped to his nose, and he asked me if I wanted to take the red pill or the blue pill, and I don't remember which one I picked, but I have this foggy memory of that.
Was he, like, jumping on walls and stuff?
Well, not at the time, but he did have a long black trench coat, and he had a very deep voice. Yeah, it's a weird memory that I have.
Yeah, I never heard of that before.
No?
Weird.
No. Oh, man, just had some deja vu. Wow, that was weird. Anyway.
That was the Matrix. It's a glitch in the Matrix.
I need to watch that movie again. It's been a long time. Anyway, that took a turn. The pedal industry, in Brian's opinion, is going to turn into virtual reality. That's what
my brain tends to wander. I don't know if anyone's ever caught that or not, but as I think through things, it just twists and morphs and changes, and yeah, I got some problems, dude.
No, no. I mean, if you're considering it a problem, then I have the same problem. I definitely can relate to that.
I guess I've always been what my teachers would call spacey. Where, like, I did really bad in school. We've talked about that before, and instead of like paying attention in class, I would just stare off into space, and my mind would just wander aimlessly. Mm-hmm. And so now the only difference is I'm speaking while it wanders. That's the only difference.
Well, to kick this back towards gear, like what we were talking about a little bit, I just had a thought. We were talking about all the innovation and the things that are happening and how the gear world's changing. There is this thing that happens in society every once in a while, though, where things tend to like throw back to something else. Do you think that we might see that as a pushback to some of the super high-tech stuff that's going to be coming down the line?
Yeah, we will. I mean, you always do. I mean, like, if you think about the 80s, for example, and I know you're younger than me, but, like in the 80s, we started talking about how solid state was so much better than tube, right? Mm-hmm. And Crate, the company, St. Louis Music, came out with like all these solid state amps that were wildly successful. And, in the meantime, like, there was a resurgence of, like, old vintage tube amps that were just starting to come up. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people were using these gigantic racks, full of digital stuff and just full of electronics. And people were starting to kind of get tired of that. And right around the time that all the grunge stuff really started taking off, we started getting rid of the racks, and it started, people started finding like old deluxe reverbs in pawn shops for like $50 or something.
Oh man.
Oh man. Yeah, and so, it's crazy. But, I mean, yeah, so that did build up a resurgence, and, of course, that led to the boutique market and blah, blah, blah. So I think that will happen again. I don't know if it's going to be as big this time. I think a lot of that, you got to remember back then, like, the kids in high school and growing up, like, you didn't have anything to do. There was, like, if you had cable, there was, like, 30 channels, and most of it was news. It wasn't great. Mm-hmm. And, of course, there was no internet. The game systems were like Nintendo, which is cool, but it wasn't anything like online play today. You'd play Nintendo for a while, and you'd be like, all right, this is getting boring. I'm going to go find something else to do. So you either did that, or you rode bikes or skateboard, or you played guitar. Like playing guitar, at least here in the Midwest America, where I'm from, like that was kind of... everybody had a guitar. Not everybody, but a lot of people had a guitar, and it was just like what we did. It was the gaming of today. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that I don't know is since there's so many things that take up a person's mental space, whether when this does come back around, whether it's really going to be anywhere near as big, or whether it's just going to be big with us, 50, 60-year-old dudes who, sold our stuff and because we were busy working and now we have some time and so now we want to play guitar again,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking of it in terms of like this coexistence, sort of how the music industry as a whole is super digital. Like digital is the way most people consume media. At the same time, the vinyl resurgence is real. Like all the pressing plants that are operating right now can't keep up with the demand for vinyl, which is like the oldest, way to listen to music that's still kind of currently available.
That's true.
So I wonder if there'll be this weird coexistence of like super, digital, music with like super old school kind of thing, like living alongside each other at the same time and both thriving.
Well, keep in mind though, like the record, the vinyl resurgence, like it's still boutique. So like if you compare the numbers of the people that are, listening to music via MP3 or via YouTube or SoundCloud or Spotify or Pandora, or, like all these digital means, if you compare the numbers, they don't even compare at all.
Well,
like people aren't finding, let me put this in a different way. So you and I decided to write a song together online, right? Mm-hmm. So we're sending tracks back to each other, and we're in GarageBand, and you're like, I got this cool drum beat, and I'm like, I got the bass part, and you're like, I got a fuzz pedal plug-in that I'm going to put on this. It's going to sound massive.
I got the high part, Brian. I got the high part.
I'll take the low melody. Yeah, so we're making this song together. We throw it out on SoundCloud. We're putting our art out to the world, right?
Hit my mixtape, fam.
Way. Exactly. But we're not even thinking about vinyl. We're nowhere near getting vinyl, And
right.
the people that might be even looking for us on SoundCloud, they're not thinking about vinyl.
That's true. They're not.
I mean, it's a very select group of people that are into vinyl. And I know it's hip and cool right now, and I totally get that. But all the kids that I'm watching, when I say kids, it's because I'm an old fart. I'm talking about 18, 20, 22-year-old kids. No one's listening to vinyl, man. They're downloading YouTube stuff.
I think for, more and more, I find myself in this really weird space in the generations where, like, I remember when the internet wasn't a thing. I remember not having cable in growing up and all that stuff. So like a lot of older guys, they kind of look at me and they think, well, he doesn't remember any of that stuff. It's like, no, I do. That was my generation, was like one of the last to experience that.
You're the last generation. You're old enough to really grasp the idea of not having internet, But you also were there at the time where, us old farts are like, let's see, internet. I guess I'll go on AOL and check my email,
Right.
And you're like, no, man, I'm going to start a blog and I'm going to write and I'm going to create a website and, like all this stuff.
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
most 45-year-old dudes my age, they weren't even thinking that at all. At the most, they're checking out, pictures and stuff online.
Right.
That's a polite way of putting it, I suppose. I mean, most of the guys that when I was 20-ish, whenever like the internet actually became easy to get on via AOL. Mm-hmm. And I was the weird guy that, this is why I feel like I identify more with younger people than I do people my own age. Honestly, it's probably why you and I get along so well. I don't identify with 45-year-old dudes. I feel like they're old, and I feel like I'm 20 inside. But whenever like I discovered the internet, I was like the first thing I looked up was guitar tablature. I wanted to learn there's guitar tablature on here, and so I'm like, holy crap, I'm going to look up all Steve Vai stuff. I'm going to look up all Satriani stuff, I'm like, there's got to be Brett Mason stuff on here somewhere. There's got to be.
Right.
So yeah, it was really weird. But all my friends were like, "Dude, check out this chick," and I'm like, "Whatever, man, get a girlfriend." So I've always been a backwards guy, and I used to be really uncomfortable with it, and now, like, especially as you watch our YouTube videos kind of migrate, I guess I'm just more comfortable with being awkward and weird, and I'm not afraid to show it to the world now. I don't. That's the real authentic me. Like, for example, on YouTube this morning, some guy's like, "Dude, calm down on the coffee." I'm like, "You don't understand. That's the normal me." Like, I'm always like this wired, squirrely guy that's all over the place. That's just my natural personality. So I don't know how we got here again. But
Well, but to take a couple steps back, where you were saying one of the first things you looked up on the internet was guitar tablature. That's probably one of the earliest things I remember looking up too, was guitar tabs. So it's like, ooh, I got to figure out how to play this song. Now, I was probably trying to look up, like, you'd been playing for a long time at this point, and I just started, so that it's kind of a little bit different.
Right.
But I was probably looking up, like,
so you're looking at chords.
Yeah, I was like, how do I play this Green Day song? Right. Or something.
Right.
So yeah, that's funny, because I remember going like, oh, I can find guitar things on here. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
The internet is wonderful. And then that's probably I probably took a big, break from the internet when I, stopped going to high school and everything, when I graduated, and then just kind of like went to work, and my job wasn't really online based, so I wasn't on there that much. And then it was like, I kind of came back like a year and a half later or so, and I was like, ooh, what are guitar pedals? And then here we are today. Ugh. What a sickness. But
yeah, see, I remember even at that time, we're talking, I'm going to say it was 1999-ish or so. Maybe 98, when somewhere near there where I found the Telecaster discussion page.
yes.
Now, as we know, at tdpri.com, I think is what it is. Back then, it was just the Telecaster discussion page. It was just like a bulletin type of setup, which it's going to really confuse some people. It wasn't like a regular forum like what you're thinking. It reminded me more of Reddit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
like Reddit with a really bad user interface.
Wait,
You know what I mean?
worse than Reddit's? Oh no.
Yeah. Like it was terrible. It was like, it was just all really bad Times New Roman font or whatever. But so I remember being on a Telecaster discussion page back then, and like, who was it? There was a writer that wrote like a George Strait song, and I'm like, holy crap, you're that guy. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're that guy. And then, what's the big session player from the 80s? Reggie Young. Reggie Young was on there. And I'm like, holy crap, Reggie Young is on the Telecaster discussion page. I'm like, I can ask, okay, so everyone who doesn't know, Reggie Young is a huge session player in country. Like he kind of was there when Brent Mason was just coming on the scene. And Reggie was the guy who'd been playing stuff for years and years and years. So he's, a monster in that world. So as a guy that was looking up guitar tablature on the internet, like, I was blown away that I could talk to Reggie Young, So it just totally threw me for a loop.
Yeah, that
I don't know. Once again, I don't know why I'm saying this.
you don't know why or how or what we're supposed to do with this information, but we're now here.
Yeah. This is not relevant at all to what we were talking about. But
what did I tell you when you're like, "What are we going to talk about?" And I said, "I don't know. We're just going to go."
I have no doubt, Brian, you'll ramble it to somewhere.
Yes. We will steer this ship into some direction, and hopefully it's interesting to listen to.
This should be a drinking game for your show on this episode. It's like every time you say, all right, well, I'm just going to take a few steps back and get to the point.
No, I don't want to be I don't want to be responsible for alcohol poisoning. Do not do that. Oh, geez.
I think people make that a drinking game with the Chasing Tone podcast. Every time we go off topic, take a shot.
No, Brian, we don't want to kill people. Stop it.
No, I'm not saying do that. I'm saying I've had people email me to say that they do that. I'm not endorsing it. I'm saying that's what people do.
That's what they do. Okay, all right. I'm glad to know that we carry on that tradition quite proudly over on the Chasing Tone podcast, where we continue to stay off topic as much as possible. Travis Feaster, your memory still lives on.
That's true. We carry on the tradition for you, bub.
That's right. Oh man, that's awesome. Well, Brian,
so that's all I got. I'm spent.
We've been at this for a while. I mean, because we technically recorded 2 podcasts back to back. So, but I think it was a great success. Thank you for coming on the show. In a last little plug here, where can everybody find you? And I do have a final question for you after we answer that question.
You have a final question as well?
Yeah, something we didn't talk about last time that I've talked about with most of my other guests. So,
are you serious?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, so go to wamplerpedals.com. That's WAMPLER pedals.com. Twitter's twitter.com/twitterpedals. Twitter.com/wamplerpedals. Facebook/wamplerpedals. Instagram/wamplerpedals. And for those who like Snapchat, you can always follow me personally at Brian Wampler.
There you go. All right, sweetness. Okay, Brian. So it's a little bit of a shame that I've asked so many other people this question, and I never have asked you. So
boxers,
you just made the same joke as the last guest. Now I have to cut this out so that people don't think that you're copying him. Brian Wampler, what is your favorite kind of pizza?
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my favorite, it changes, but right now, here's what it is.
Okay.
It is thin crust.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we call, at least here in Indiana, we call Chicago slice, which basically just means it's cut into squares rather than triangles.
Okay, gotcha.
Extra sauce, extra cheese, pepperoni, sausage, Italian sausage, green peppers, black olives, mushroom, extra cheese, garlic, and what are they called? What are those peppers called? The pepperoncinis.
Oh, you just made a really good pizza in my mind. That sounds fantastic.
It's so amazing. Like as I talk about this, I'm thinking, holy cow, I'm hungry. I gotta go get a pizza. Man.
Oh man, that sounds really good. That's pretty much how I would put together something if somebody was like, here's a, build your own pizza type of menu. That's pretty spot on to how I would do it.
Well, I don't know if no one does. I'm surprised no one does that in Portland. Here, Papa John's, like the big chain.
I don't.
App,
no, there is. There's lots of places that do it. Like the one I frequent does not do that. It's like a classic like Italian wood oven pizza. It's so amazing. Mm-hmm. They will let you kind of do whatever you want, but it's not like a traditional American pizza, I should say.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those pizzas are amazing. Like New York has some of the best pizza I've ever had. So, and Chicago too, of course. But
I know what I want for lunch.
I hear you.
Pizza it is. All right, Brian. Thank you very much for coming on again. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, and as always, folks, for Brian, this is Blake. Good luck and good tones.
And that's our show for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and if you want to hear more of Brian and I rambling on and on and on and on and on and on, I'm also on the Chasing Tone podcast pretty much weekly with Brian, so you can check that out over at the Chasing Tone podcast on iTunes. And what else? Been a little lacking in the review department lately. If you enjoy the show and you'd like others to find it so you can horse around and, talk about pizza and gear with other like-minded folks, if you could leave a good review on iTunes, that really helps bump us up in the awareness and helps more people find the show. And that would be very much appreciated. So until next time, have a good week and rock hard.
One last thing before we totally sign off here, I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.